until you're walking up this way. But thank you all so much for this recognition. It is sometimes hard to do the work that we do, right? I know that you're here because you care about people.
I'm Veronica Villalobos, and I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the Office of Personnel Management. Okay, so when you think of diversity, don't think of what you've always thought about. Put that to the side and think about diversity of thought and all the things that go into diversity, right? So it's going to be identity, which is what you look like and where you grew up and where you came from. And it's going to be about information, the information you've gathered because of all of your experiences. And then it's going to be about ideas, and that's about how our brains are hardwired and how we work with other people and we bring those ideas. So it is race and its national origin and its sex and its disability and its LGBT status and its veteran status. And it is where you grew up and where you came from and what your family structures were. And it's a host of other things that you can't even remember, but these are the things that make up diversity. And it's important to think of all these things because to be most effective, you want to bring all those variations together to create the most effective workplace and really the most effective society. At the Office of Personnel Management, in tandem with the Veterans Administration, what we did is we came up with what we're calling the new IQ, or the new inclusion quotient. And what we do with the new IQ is we looked at the employee viewpoint survey and we picked out the 20 questions that have the closest correlation to making people feel like they're in an inclusive work environment. And so these ideas cluster around 5 behaviors, which are fair, open, cooperative, supportive, and empowering. So imagine working in a workplace where you feel that it's fair and you know what you're doing, you get good feedback, and you understand that the policies are being properly applied. It's cooperative, people work well together, and they want to hear from you on your ideas, which makes it an open workplace where who you are is not as important as what you bring to the table because of your diversity. And it's supportive, which means we actually implement all those supportive policies we all talk about, but we sometimes can and can't use. And then ultimately, you're empowered to do your very best work. So you get to a place where you both belong and you feel like you belong with your organization and in the group and are working towards the mission. And you're uniquely valued for what you bring to the table. That's what we're trying to do with the new IQ. So we have training, we have small acts of inclusion that is based on neuroscience that teaches managers, supervisors in the workplace how to create inclusion. So when you think about the LGBT community, you've got to think about a community in the federal government who has gone from extreme discrimination, where in some cases they couldn't even get security clearance, to a place where we want to make sure that they're included and valued and developing as well as everyone else in the workplace. And so that was our goal. When we started the work of diversity and inclusion, we said, how can we make sure that everyone is getting fair treatment? And we first started by taking our regulations and saying merit promotion means that there is no consideration of your LGBT status for one, right? We also made sure that we wrote guidance for transgender employees because we're finding out there's more and more of them in the federal workforce and people were not treating them fairly. So we wanted to make sure that they had good guidance on how to do so. And we most recently issued guidance on discrimination and how we can make sure that our LGBT employees know how to file claims of discrimination with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, with the Office of Special Counsel, that they understand what the expectations are under the merit systems principles, and they understand where to get the guidance at OPM. And then finally, we're really excited, but we're just about to issue training for the LGBT community and for everyone outside of it so they know how to make sure that all discrimination is taken out of the workplace. Now those are kind of those big ticket items, those policy pieces, but when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about the new IQ, we always say, let's remember our LGBT brothers and sisters. So there are kind of 3 groups that we leverage regularly in the federal workforce. First, we have our special emphasis program managers. And these are folks who were built kind of under executive order in some circumstances, and they're in the EEOC's regulations, and OPM has a role to play in helping special emphasis program managers work within the agency, sometimes as collateral duty, sometimes as full-time, to help the agency create fairness and inclusion and equality for these groups within the agency. So imagine them as employees of the agency working on one particular issue or another. Then we have our affinity groups. We think of our affinity groups as larger entities, more national push, where they're working on special areas based around identity usually. So imagine race, national origin, sex, disability, LGBT status. All of these different groups can have these national organizations. And then we have employee resource groups. And this is the grassroots piece. This is how we make sure that everything we're doing at the national level is sustainable. So these are the groups that are within each agency or department or even in certain local areas that help the local organization create greater inclusion and diversity and engagement and equality. So the LGBT community has not historically been put in the special emphasis program category to create managers that are built out of the agency's structure. What we've been doing is working very hard with agencies to understand that if you need an SEPM, a special emphasis program manager for LGBT at your agency, you should create them. And there have been some departments and some agencies who are really leading the way in this area and leveraging the SEPM for LGBT community. Now let me say this, not all agencies are good at using the SEPMs, and so that's one of the reasons we haven't required it of all agencies, because depending on their efficacy, we want to make sure that they're high value targets, and so that's why we focus on certain agencies and departments who are using SEPMs, and we're saying, folks, you should consider whether you need LGBT SEPMs in your organization. So this is probably one area of confusion, is how do we use the metrics that exist for the LGBT community in the federal workforce as compared to the other race, national origin, sex, and disability diversity groups that we talk about regularly. It's usually about, are folks getting promotions? Are folks being hired at the rate we expect? Are they getting training at the same rate? Are they getting awards at the same rate? And that's hard for us to tell because we don't collect data in the same way for LGBT. So when you join the federal government, no one asks you to fill out a form. What we have since done is we're now collecting federal employee viewpoint survey information on whether or not you're in the LGBT community. And the reason we're doing this is we want to find a new way to track that data. So you can look at the employee viewpoint survey and figure out, are the LGBT employees engaged? Are they included? Do they feel valued? Do they want to stay in government or do they want to leave? What do they think about their leaders in the federal workforce? And all these different pieces can be drilled down to a pretty minute level within any reporting structure, and we can figure out how our LGBT employees are doing in the federal workforce.